Welcome back. We have a note from that last public service announcement. No teddy bears were harmed in the making of that. Now, I'm going to ask each guest a closing question. If our nation were to enter a war, would you fight? Why or why not? Erin.
If it's like Courtney likes to tell us, if it's just so there's no way to avoid it, we're not just going to leave them there helpless. The point of a pacifist is to avoid what must be done with violence, but to help the people we care about.
Okay. So, like, it might save lives if you help. Okay, good. Courtney, would you fight?
Yes, I would fight if our nation was at war. Morality demands that good people engage in war, so I believe, as a just war theorist, I should. The military also must make sure that innocent people on enemy sides aren't targeted. I would only fight, though, if the war met moral standards and criteria.
Mr. Beale, would you fight?
If a nation were to go to war, I would very much fight. I would fight with all my heart for the passion of America. You see, a conqueror is a lover of peace. I simply want to end the violence, not start new violence.
Wow. Deep. And lastly, our holy war advocate, Charlotte. Would you fight?
Well, depending on the circumstances, if it was for the right reasons, I would fight. If it was justified by God's will, like if some group of people were in severe trouble from the war, yes, I would fight. But if God was in favor of our side, I would fight. But if ultimately the war would not lead to anything useful or practical, then no, I wouldn't fight. God's ends justify our means.
Yes. Those are some very strong views from each of our four guests. Now, I turn to you, our audience. You've certainly heard some interesting ideas today. With whom do you agree? What do you think of their ideas? What questions did all this bring to your mind? After hearing all of this, do you think it is ever right for a nation to go to war? I'd like to have you ask our guests your questions now. Who would like to be first? Yes, you with the maroon-colored shirt.
I have a question for Courtney. Would you ever go to war for revenge or to conquer someone else?
No, that is the complete opposite of just war's theory. We must enter into the war with the right intentions, never for revenge or to conquer someone else.
Okay, anybody else? You with the Holy War shirt. Please stand up, say your name and your question.
Hi, my name is Steven, and I have a question for the Holy War theorist. How can you justify the fact that you're taking lives based on the word of a being that you can't even prove exists?
Well, his existence isn't what matters, or the proof of his existence, rather, doesn't really matter in this. If he sends a message somehow to some being on Earth, clearly he's caring enough to get us to fight in the war, so we must engage.
Does anybody else have a question from our studio audience? Yes? Man with the leather jacket.
I would like to ask a question for Chris. What if you had two interests that were conflicting in a war? What would you pick, to go to war or not to go to war?
Can I give an example of two conflicting interests?
Say you want a resource in another person's country, but you just fought a war and you don't think it's in your interest to fight another, but you desperately need this resource in the other person's country.
Well, you see, whichever is the most important for my country to survive, which would probably be get the resource that is, a necessity, a nutrient for, my possible, well-being, then I think it just may be necessary. We may have to, tank through it and, toss one interest to the side.
Okay, and I'll have to cut you off at that. We are going to take a short break. We'll be right back.
I didn't bomb them because it wasn't just. Our country is in shambles. We should have gone to war while we had a chance.
I guess being a nice guy doesn't always pay off.
Do it,
Fine.
That's good.
Don't be like these people. Political realism. The only real choice.
And we're back, taking more questions from our studio audience. Ma'am with the plaid shirt.
I have a question for political realists. Now, as I know, politics are based on opinion. So, talking about war, you're inferring that every opinion should decide if bloodshed is worthy or not. So everybody decides on their own whose blood is worth shedding? Like, you aren't making any sense in the way that you're saying that everyone should choose who can be killed because of their opinion. I think that's completely wrong, and I think that pacifism is completely right in the way that they're saying that there should be no reason that your opinion should come into war.
Well, that wasn't really a question, that was more of a statement.
Well, my question to you is, whose opinion is right about whose blood should be shed? Who says that one opinion is more worthy than the other?
The majority's opinion, obviously.
Well, what about the individuals? What happens if it's an individual group against you? What if it was everyone saying, well, I don't like Chris, let's kill Chris. But your opinion is that you shouldn't be killed. It's right for you to be killed then?
Well, if that's the interest of America, then fine. Hang me right now. Mm-hmm.
Quite a comeback. Ma'am with the orange shirt. Joan of Arc, is that your name?
Yes, it is. I have a question for Chris. I really don't understand your point of view at all on war. Political realist, could you please explain to us what you mean exactly
Well,
in terms that you would use to explain to a 5-year-old?
we would go to war if our interests, if we believed that, they were doing something wrong that, conflicted with our interests, then we would therefore, fight them, go to war. And we always defend our interests, of course. I mean, if they were, insulting what we believed then, of course, we would go fight them. And, well, yeah.
Yes, sir. With the blue shirt.
I have a question for Courtney Brown. Now, who has the authority to enter a war?
Well, war is usually launched by a nation's authorities, such as military and government leaders. Mainly, though, war has to be launched with a chance for success, so whoever decides that we should go to war must know that we may be able to win.
Yes. Any more questions? Yes, sir.
Pacifists. Are you saying that if a hostile country launched nuclear missiles at you, you wouldn't do anything or take any violent action at all?
Well, we wouldn't start off with violence. What we would do is we try to talk it out with them.
The missiles are already coming at you, so...
Well, then we have to take whatever action we can. Being a pacifist doesn't mean that you won't fight back at all. It just means that the last resort you're ever going to take is violence. We're not all hippies.
Breaking the stereotype. Very nice. Any more questions? Okay, then I guess we'll have to cut and go to break. Be right back.
In the name of God.
God has spoken to me. Holy war is the only good reason to go to war.
Thank you very much to our guests, Courtney Brown, Aaron Valpone, Charlotte Emery, and Christopher Beal. Please give them a round of applause. And thank you to our studio audience. Please join us tomorrow for our next show about preparing care packages with homemade oatmeal raisin cookies to our troops in service. Thank you and have a good day.